Today, we are talking about the intersection of AI and creativity. These two fields are merging with one another, and there's a lot of different connections between the two, especially in the world of marketing in business today. My guest today is Helen Todd. I'll tell you more about her in a second, so stay tuned.
Welcome to the Smart Business Revolution podcast, where we feature top entrepreneurs, business leaders, and thought leaders, and ask them how they built key relationships to get where they are today. Now, let's get started with the show.
All right, welcome everyone. John Corcoran here. I'm the host of this show, and every week I feel so privileged. I get to talk to interesting CEOs, entrepreneurs, founders of all kinds of different companies. You can check out our archives to check out past episodes with folks from Netflix and Kinko's, EO, YPO, Activation Blizzard, Grubhub, Redfin, many more. And of course, this episode brought to you by Rise 25, my company where we help B2B businesses to get clients, referrals, and strategic partnerships with done-for-you podcasts and content marketing. You go to our website at rise25.com. You can learn all about our new podcast, Copilot, which we're really excited about, our digital platform. Cool. And first, I want to give a shout out to Dave Dumoulin. He is the owner of LW Office Furniture Warehouse, who introduced me to today's guest. Thank you, Dave, for sponsoring today's guest. Helen Todd, she's the co-founder and CEO of Creativity Squared. She's a seasoned entrepreneur. Fun fact, she digitally cloned herself, first person in Cincinnati to do that. What is that? I have no idea. No, we were talking about it a little bit beforehand. I'm going to learn a little bit more about what it is, and as will you. It's really interesting. It's a lot of potential for it. And she also, in 2010, established Sociality Squared, which is a New York City-based social media agency, and it's her interest in social media that expanded her interest into AI and the connections with creativity. So we're going to talk about that. But I love to ask people, Helen, I love to ask people about where they got started with entrepreneurship. You were the child of entrepreneurs, a second generation entrepreneur, or maybe beyond. And you actually sold plastic visors. Now, I've had people on here that said they sold gum, candy, lots of people who said they sold weed, but you never plastic visors. So why plastic visors?
I feel like weed might be a much cooler story.
Especially if it came with the visors.
I grew up in Sevier County, which is actually Dolly Parton's hometown, and she's actually a dream guest for my podcast.
Oh, nice. That'd be cool.
If anyone has any Dolly Parton connections.
There's got to be a billboard on the edge of town, I hope. Home of Dolly Parton.
Oh yeah, she's everywhere in Sevier County, but it's an extremely tourist town because we're at the foothills of the Great Smoky Mountains. We have Dollywood, which is Dolly Parton's theme park, and get millions of visitors every year that comes into the area. So it's super touristy. And you mentioned my parents are entrepreneurial. My mom has had an art gallery for many, many years. And at some point in front of her art gallery, I had a little table. And I think it was from another venture where we had that my biological dad had, where we had all these leftover plastic visors that are like so cheesy for tourists to put on their heads. And I don't know how old I was, maybe 6 or 7 years old. When people would come out of the store and if they wanted a visor to be customized, we had the markers and would put their names and decorate them however they wanted. So that was one of the early entrepreneurial memories that I have.
That's cool. That's cool. And so that's interesting, really, that here you are interested in AI and creativity, and you're the child of an artist. Now, artists sometimes, of course, we know, can be challenged with the world of business. Those two can kind of seem at loggerheads. What did you observe or learn from your mother, who was able to engage with both art and commerce by having a gallery and selling her art?
Yeah, that's a good question. I was actually talking to someone about this the other day, that unless you go to business school, whether you're a dentist or an artist, oftentimes you're not ever taught like the business skills, even though almost everyone needs them in some form or function. And And I would say, seeing my mom be an artist was definitely, I think her story is fascinating, that she went a very traditional route of what she thought she had to do in terms of going to college. She actually was schooled as a speech therapist and didn't know she could be an artist. And when she was exposed to that, she really pivoted and like followed her passion. So I think that was always just really inspiring, and that she figured out how to a way to make it a living for her through her gallery, which is the story of the plastic visors was in Pigeon Forge, but her current gallery that she's a part owner of is called Cliff Dwellers in Gatlinburg on the arts and crafts route. So I think it's just, she's always kind of, what is the saying? A drum to her own beat or whatever, like kind of
beat to her own drum. Yeah. Marches to her own drummer, I think is
that phrase. And I think that's always just kind of inspired me or influenced me of just going a different route than what you might expect.
Marches to the beat of their own drum, I think is what it is. Yeah.
That's the phrase. We are filming on Friday.
and yeah, that's true. It's late on a Friday. It's a good excuse. And your stepfather and your biological father also had their own businesses. Do you feel like when you were kind of like raised that naturally you would go start your own business?
No, I was actually, my first internship at college was with Fidelity Investments and in their PR team. And I really liked the idea of a very structured path to leadership and development in terms of a very corporate structure and path. But then my first job, because I graduated grad school in 2008 and the economy was absolutely tanked then. Great time.
Yeah. I graduated law school in 2007. So same thing. Yeah.
Yeah. It was not the best time for finding a job. And the company that ended up hiring me was one of the early social media agencies as well. And it was this, which I'm very, very grateful for, but it was this couple, and it was such a shit show. They were blowing up so fast, and it was almost like the reverse mentoring of like, I didn't know people could run companies this way and make money. And it was like, I can do this. I can do this. Was it 13 years later? I still have my social media agency.
That's funny. That's similar to how I ended up going to work for myself, as I kind of felt like, well, I can do this. Like I saw, the way that the company I was working for at the time, law firm I was working for at the time, was running things. I was pretty independent. I was just like, I can do this myself. And so is that what it was like for you? You were just like, well, I'm going to go start my own social media marketing agency.
Yeah, well, I guess one key fact is after 10 months, they actually fired me because the economy was so bad. Like I would have quit, but it was like honestly one of the best things. And it took me a long time to admit that because, I'm a very good student, overachiever. It was a huge, huge blow to my ego. But the next day I woke up at like 5:30 in the morning with a domain idea in my head and went to my computer. As most of my ideas, I immediately buy a domain. And and before you know it, it was around, I forget the exact date, January, but by February, it was officially starting Sociality Squared as my social media agency.
And you mentioned the economy still kind of lumping along at this point. Did it take a while to get your feet under you, to get clients, to get some traction?
They paid me so little. My benchmark
and I pretty low. Yeah.
Yeah. And I had nothing to lose at that moment in time, in terms of stakes being high or whatnot. But no, we were profitable. And I had a co-founder too. We kind of had this Vegas wedding of jumping into running a business together. But
what was that like? So did you, you get fired and then you immediately contact someone and say, let's start a business together? Or were you already discussing it with that person, or how did that?
It was like, I have this idea. Oh, I love it. Let's do it together. It's actually the only time I've ever shared a bank account with someone. So It's very much a relationship in its own right. But yeah, no, we originally were like, because she was actually from this, we met at the same company that inspired both of us. But we wanted to get out of agency services, and we were like, oh, we'll build a platform to educate people how to use social media. But a few clients followed us, and they wanted to pay us to implement their social media marketing. So we just followed the money. And because we had like no overhead at the time, we were profitable from day one. And we've grown the business through word of mouth ever since.
Yeah. And now what's really interesting to me, I think, about your story is that you actually got a peek under the cover of OpenAI. You had a friend at the company who gave you a demo before it was released widely, and it, took the world by storm with ChatGPT. What was that like for you when you saw this demo of this technology? Did you, anticipate that this is going to be a huge success? It was going to get everyone's attention?
There's certain moments that change trajectories, and I feel like that day was one of those moments in my life that really has changed the trajectory of at least my career in this chapter that I'm in right now. But yeah, it was October of last year. And I always, in addition to my professional work, have creative projects that I'm usually just thinking about and talking about and marinating on. And one of them is this mini series, like a television mini series, Insecure-esque style or category. And it's in a massive Excel document right now. And my friend gave me a demo, and we used the first scene for the miniseries into ChatGPT. And I was honestly blown away at how good it was, how fast it was, the dialogue that it just pumped out with very little input.
So what was your input? Like you said, I want to do a mini series on XYZ topic. Draft me a script for it. Is that what you said?
Yeah, it was just kind of like the first scene of two friends in this, and it drafted the setting, the script, and I think even a cell phone dropping. And it captured my imagination of like, a lot of times when people talk about Gen AI or generative AI, it's like that it solves that blank page problem. And I saw that, I was like, and my first thought was, oh my goodness, within 2 years, I can write this entire script, 4 seasons worth, and then the AI tech will be so good that it can be one of the first AI generated miniseries. But I launched a podcast instead. And the tech, honestly,
as one does. Yeah.
Yeah. And the text input to video is getting so good that, we'll probably see that type of project come out as early as next year.
I've seen a few projects that are AI video that are just absolutely blow me away. I saw one recently that was a trailer in the style of Sofia Coppola of, I forget exactly what it was, some like a trailer for a movie that was like in the style of the director Sofia Coppola, and it was just absolutely blew me away. So when you saw this, what did you think in terms of your, social media marketing agency? Because, obviously there's a lot of companies out there that are really concerned about, is this going to displace a lot of the work that we do, not just in marketing or social media marketing, but other types of companies as well. Was there a part of you that was fearful?
I don't think fearful, personally. However, hyper aware that this AI is going to greatly impact marketing and advertising and social media marketing. And to be very honest, having the podcast and really diving into the conversations at the intersection of creativity and AI is opening up another runway as well, in addition to my social media agency. Because with the tools, it can really just drive the costs of production down. And a lot of our core services of like creating content and publishing, can be replaced by AI. Not completely, and you still need strategy, but it's definitely going to impact the industry a lot. So not that I'm scared, because I think with social media marketing in general, it's such like I always would joke, it's such a fast-paced space that you're always experimenting and testing new platforms and new tools. Like AI, it makes that look cute because the space like moves so fast. So I think it's more of just like seeing a trend, adapting to it, and figuring out, the business use case for it. And I think there's a lot of value AI can bring to marketing and agencies to find efficiencies and moving models away from value of time to just like the value that you're bringing as just kind of like a shift in payment and services type of thing. But yeah, I think just more like a hyper awareness that's going to impact the industry in ways that we may not fully wrap our heads around right now.
And one of those applications we were talking about beforehand is this idea of synthetic media, which tell us a little bit about what that is.
Yeah, so like you mentioned in a little bit of my bio, I'm the first resident of Cincinnati, Ohio, to digitally clone myself with a hyper-realistic avatar. They have a lot of different names: custom synthetic avatar, digital twin, photorealistic avatar, digital clone. So now that you've heard it, you'll probably hear it a whole lot more. It's very, very early days. So my video presence was cloned, my voice was cloned, and I have this digital clone that takes those, and through the magic of AI, I have this digital likeness that looks like me and sounds like me, but is not me and is all AI created. And it's kind of fascinating because if you think about just from a marketing sense of the different types of communication that we have, and this actually comes from the company who created my clone Render, their chief experience officer, there's like a hierarchy of kind of intimacy of presence when you're communicating with someone. Like at the top of that is in person, because there's that energy in person.
Sure.
That is probably a call like this of Zoom, where we're live and active and interactive and can play off of each other's movements. Below that is video, where it's my real embodied self, where I'm communicating out. Below that is probably my digital likeness, which I can feed scripts and my clone will perform for me. It sounds like me, looks like me, but isn't me. Below that might be maybe an animated GIF of a photo, or below that, just a photo and text. So, within the communication toolbox of all the different ways to interact, a clone fits in that as like an embodied self. Even if it's synthetic, which is, just AI created and not the real me in any capacity. But if you think of like an email communication where after this interview, you follow up and it's like, Helen, it was really great meeting you. I have your text that indicates that it's you. You might have a photo in your signature that shows that's you. We've probably all got spam or emails of like, I created this custom video for you that's embedded. Well, one of the iterations of that or possibilities is to then have your clone that's customized with a message that's like, hey, this is the embodied John in a clone communicating. So it brings a level of just extension of yourself and how you can express and communicate. And that has a lot of different business use cases.
And so do you see it as, for like sales, for training, for mentorship of employees, all of the above? What are some of the ways in which you think it'll start and then expand to?
Yeah, all of the above. I think one, a lot of thought leaders, anyone who has a lot of content, like if you have a lot of blog content that you want to turn into video for the Google SEO purposes, you could just feed blog posts into script or turn them into scripts and get really quick video content with an avatar is one. Jill, who I mentioned, is the chief experience officer at Render. She actually just finished her dissertation on the effectiveness of hyper-realistic avatars standing in for their human counterparts. So like if you have an online course, which you see a lot, maybe professors or a lot of people who want to make courses but don't want to be on camera, you can feed the scripts to your clones, and her research shows that it's still as engaging as if it was the human that was performing it, and also that the viewers are retaining the content as well, or the information that they're learning. So standing in for e-learning or courses is definitely one. Social media content, for having a podcast. I don't really like to be on camera as much if my clone can do that. I've had my clone open some talks I've done on stages. And I think one use case that you'll probably see a lot of is, on a lot of websites, there's that customer service widget at the bottom right, or wherever it is. And oftentimes
you see that popping up as some digital clone that's kind of engaging with you in conversation, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Because right now there's photos. Sometimes you see video of people pre-recorded clones and interactive clones that are it's so much more powerful versus a stock image. Because I know I've seen for some of those widgets, the same person across different websites. Yeah. This is the owner, or this is the customer service rep's clone and chatbot that you can interact with, before redirecting you to other places. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of different use cases.
Yeah, I think in terms of education, it'll be amazing because I have my 9-year-old has been really getting into Duolingo to teach Spanish, to learn Spanish. And there's been times when he's been they kind of gamify it, like an app on his iPad, and he's learning Spanish, and he'll spend 45 minutes or an hour going through, learning these different words and stuff. And I think about how painful it was for me learning languages, and now he's got this step change above of a much more effective way to learn a language. And then you could go beyond that, and you could have this, digital twin, digital avatar that you're having an engaging conversation with, that's kind of coaching you to learn a language, or learn anything for that matter, math or English or whatever.
Well, and the fascinating thing with that is I only speak one language. My clone now speaks 28 languages.
Wow.
She quote unquote, she just got upgraded because a month ago she spoke 8 languages. So as the tech improves, she'll be able to speak more languages. And I think the other interesting thing, which I can see a massive market opportunity for, is AI plus personal development. And to your point about your son of helping with learning Spanish, not only do you have someone who looks like you and sounds like you, but can adapt to your learning place or to your learning abilities or wherever you're at. And there's a phrase you cannot be what you cannot see. So if your clone can speak Spanish and is trained on your data, or can meet you where you're at, looks like you, sounds like you, and can show you speaking Spanish, what an amazing tool to educate and see yourself doing what your clone's doing.
Yeah. And for your business, right? Your business wants to expand into the Spanish speaking market, all of a sudden, boom, you can.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And so what are some other, interesting applications of AI and creativity that you've had your eye on recently?
Yeah, well, I encourage everyone to go and sign up for my newsletter at Creativity Squared, because we have, I learned so much, and every guest is so interesting, and I learn from all of my guests. If you look at the different modalities, so you have our mediums, you have the natural language chatbots. From a marketing sense, you can do a lot with those, especially with the new OpenAI's announcement of the custom chat, or the custom
GPT apps that are coming out now, which are allowing people to kind of program and their own app using the natural language ability of OpenAI, right?
Yeah, so that you can do some interesting things as far as building personas. I think one of the more interesting things that came from one of my guest interviews with Jay Thorne is it was the first time I had heard someone doing this. He's a writer and has written books about how to collaborate with the writing tools. Is to actually role play with ChatGPT in character scenes. And you can do this with personas too, pretend I'm this customer and you're this. But if you take the script that I did earlier, instead of saying these are the characters, write the script, you would actually be you pretend to be this character. I'll pretend to be this character. Here's the script and scene. Let's role play together. And I thought that was really interesting. And I haven't played with that yet, but that's on my to-do list. And then when you have like the text to image, and there's a lot of things with image too, where you can take images and have the machines tell you what they see in them, which is kind of interesting.
Fascinating. Yeah. Where you can take a picture of something and then they can read it. I actually did this. One of my kids got back a homework assignment. It was a math test with like 30 questions on there. And just out of curiosity, I took a picture of it, uploaded it to ChatGPT, and I said, grade this, and it graded it in seconds.
Yeah, it's amazing. That's one of the biggest things that I use for ChatGPT is to critique my own work and also give me feedback. So I overthink every subject line and titles. And oftentimes I was like, here's my 3 titles, critique it and tell me why you think it will do the best. And it does a really good job of that. And another tip that came from one of the people I interviewed was to use all the tools or cross use them and then kind of curate the answers. So Claude, for a while, you could ChatGPT is introducing it, but it doesn't always work, where you can upload a PDF file or Word doc or whatever doc, and it will immediately read all of that and to be able to summarize it. So that was like a big benefit of Claude. ChatGPT is like starting to introduce that, but just larger volume things for documents. That's really exciting. And then the text to images. I mean, I'm a huge fan of Adobe. We've had Adobe's head of the Content Authenticity Initiative on the show. It's in terms of ethical AI, I think they're one of the companies like really leading that to make sure that if you use Firefly, that any of the works that have trained their models have been done with consent and compensation to the creators, photographers, whatever, who've trained them. But their generative fill feature is amazing. If you have not played with that yet, like there was one photo.
Which is this? The Adobe generative fill? Okay.
Adobe generative fill. And the ones within Photoshop is better than the website ones, in my opinion. But there was like one photo as an example, where it was so annoying to me. There was a car in the background. And I was like, I hate that there's a car. I literally just kind of used the mouse selection tool to circle it, clicked generative fill, didn't even give it a prompt. Boom, the car was gone. And you can't even tell that it was there. One thing with the podcast that I do a lot, like the way sometimes you get portraits of people and like their shoulders are cut off, the way that the photographer shot them. And I need shoulders for the way that we crop and cut people out for the podcast material. Just sometimes it takes a little bit longer, but circle the blank space where the shoulder should be. Generative fill, shoulders are filled in that match of like the sweater or the jacket that the person's wearing. So,
and Adobe will make sure that that person got paid for their shoulder. Just making sure.
Yeah. I'm not exactly sure how that works.
I don't know how that works.
Theoretically, yes.
Yeah, it is amazing how quickly this has evolved, because just a couple of days ago, I through Dolly, which is owned by OpenAI, and they recently kind of integrated it more into their platform. And I said, because we're recording this right before Thanksgiving, create a Thanksgiving themed image of a turkey doing a podcast and say Happy Thanksgiving from Rise 25. And first of all, text was really bad for a little while on some of these different platforms. They would misspell things for some reason. And it was absolutely amazing. It blew me away, the quality of it. It, just like a month ago, it would have been much worse. The output would have been much worse. So it's amazing how quickly these things are improving.
Yeah, I co-host the largest AI meetup here in Cincinnati, and we meet once a month. And like literally, it's like, what has changed since last month? And just in this past month, we've had the executive order coming out of the White House, and then OpenAI's Dev Day, and then just recently, or what was it, yesterday? Meta announced their text to video tool, which is really good. So the speed at which the tech is improving is just it's a windfall. It's like
amazing.
buckle up. We're
amazing.
on a roller coaster.
That meetup needs to meet like every afternoon at 3:00, and it can't be a monthly meetup. Well, this has been really interesting, Helen. I want to wrap things up with my gratitude question. I'm a big fan of expressing gratitude, especially to those who've helped you along the way in your journey. Who would you want to just shout out and thank for helping you in your journey?
I love this question so much, and it's really hard to pinpoint just one person because so many people have really my entire life just been so encouraging. One person, I will give a shout out to Harry F. His stage name is Reaps One. He was my first interview that I published on the show. He's a world-renowned beatboxer and voice technologist. And I was just so grateful that I was able to launch Creativity Squared with our interview and conversation. And he's been such a big supporter since I've met him. I was very honored that I got to start Creativity Squared with an interview with him.
Very cool. Helen, where can people go to learn more about Creativity Squared and Sociality Squared?
Yep. If you go to creativitysquared.com, you can find the podcast, the newsletter, the episodes, and all of the social links. I'm Helen's Travels on most social media, Helen Todd on LinkedIn, and then it's socialitysquared.com, and that's social, ITY. Everyone knows how to spell creativity, so I'm liking Creativity Squared.
Yeah, perfect. Helen, thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Smart Business Revolution podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.